Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. In the middle of May 2003, my friends and I were hanging out with each other on a rainy night at about 9 p.m. We were from the Navajo tribe and were getting water for the animals in Sunrise, Arizona. We were having a great time. Tony was driving, I was in the passenger seat, John and Cody were in the back seat, and we were telling jokes and laughing. We got to the windmill, turned on the water, and waited for the barrel to fill up. We were walking around to look at the cows in the area when the water started to overflow. John, who is a professional sheep herder, ran to get the hose. Then we got back in the truck as a group. I was going to drive this time, but when I got into the truck, it wouldn't turn on. I tried to start the truck, and I even looked under the hood to see if something was wrong, but I couldn't find anything. I got back in the truck. Tony, John, and Cody all wanted to go mess around with the cows. I tried to figure out what was wrong with the truck while they were outside. I jumped up when I heard a sound so loud that I thought some guys were throwing rocks at the cows to scare them. So I kept working and looking for what was wrong. I got out of the truck and told the guys to stop doing that when I heard the sound again. When they got back to the truck, they started to come back. I asked if they had thrown rocks at the windmill, and they all said no. That's when I got the chills. We went back to where the cows were, but this time Tony stayed with me. The sound came back again. This time, though, it was tougher. Tony yelled at them to stop, but there was no response. Usually, they'd tell him Zaya, which is a Navajo word for calm down. He called them again, but no one answered. That's when we started to worry. Worried a lot. We started to look for them by walking out into the dark. No one answered when we called out their names. We didn't have any lights. We could only see by the light of the moon, which kept coming in and out of the clouds. We couldn't see where we were going at all. We finally found them after about 10 minutes. They were lying on the ground with their eyes wide open and almost shaking. Tony and I thought about what might go wrong. We've heard stories about these skinwalkers, or Yana Goluchi in Navajo. We've met people before, but not like this or out here in the open. We knew what we had to do, but we didn't know how many there would be. Then we heard some rustling in the nearby bushes, which made Tony and me very scared. But when we heard it again, first to our right, then to our left, then in front of us, and finally behind us, we started to get scared. Everything happened in about 3 seconds. We got chills all the way up our backs, and I knew Tony always had some Navajo mountain tobacco or blessing cedar to protect us from these skinwalkers, but he didn't have either of them. So Tony and I ran back to the truck with Cody and John's bodies, which were only half dead. Something was running after us, and we could hear its steps. We got back to the truck and got back in, and then there was no more noise. Then the skinwalkers' witchcraft on Cody and John stopped working. Coyotes that looked sick jumped up on the hood of the truck all of a sudden. There were 3 things that looked like coyotes but had more human features. They could walk either on all 4 legs or just on their 2 back legs. Their eyes were clear and red, like blood. They smelled like dead animals, and the smell was so bad you couldn't stand it. We all jumped back in our seats and screamed like little girls. They began to chant or sing. We knew they were speaking Navajo, but we were so scared that we couldn't understand what they were saying. Then, just outside Tony's window, a tall, long-haired, very black creature with crystal-like eyes was breathing heavily, and had the ugliest face we've ever seen. Tony looked right at it and jumped back so fast and hard that he almost knocked Cody out. Something that looked like powder came through the window and landed on us. We all started to calm down, and slow down our breathing. After a few seconds, it was quiet. We started knocking out one by one, and the next thing you know, it was done. The next morning, we woke up in Tony's bedroom, face down but head up. We never found out what happened to the Skinwalkers, but we had a series of ceremonies that were meant to protect us from the sickness that the Skinwalker had put on us. The medicine man told us that the people who hurt us did so because they were jealous. They were envious of us because we had so many things and had done so many great things. So, we turned their power against them so it would hurt them, and the witchcraft they put on us was supposed to get them back. After the ceremonies, Tony went back to his house, and his mother said that we just walked in the door at 1:30 a.m. that night. I went to my room after getting a glass of water. She also said how quiet we were. She thought we had been sleeping all night. We still hang out, get water, and take care of the animals, but we will never forget what happened that night. When I was about 12 years old, my father and I were driving from Window Rock on a road. This road is on the Navajo Nation and goes from I-40 near Sanders, Arizona, in the direction of Arizona. All of the reservation is trees and high desert, and there aren't any houses or running water for miles. My dad and I were driving south around 2 a.m. when it started to snow. About 40 minutes after leaving Window Rock, my dad and I saw a woman standing by the road without shoes or a jacket. She was about 25 feet from the road when we saw her. When we saw her, she didn't even try to hitchhike or look back to see who it was. She kept walking as though nothing was wrong. My dad then says, "Damn, she must be cold." I started to laugh because I thought she might be drunk. I mean, she was walking in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere. My dad pulled over for her, but she kept walking, so he called out in Navajo and English, "Hey, do you need a ride?" When my dad yelled, she slowly turned around to look at us, but her long hair covered her face so much that you couldn't even tell what she looked like. She had a mop head because her hair just covered her whole head. She moved toward us slowly, stepping on rocks, branches and snow. She walked up to the side of the truck where I was sitting and stood by the window looking at me for about 15 seconds. My dad told her to open the door and get in the back. But as soon as I opened the door, she took off running into the dark forest. My dad and I were shocked because it was cold and there was no one around for miles. So I just shut the door, and my dad shut it after me. We just left and wondered what the hell was wrong with her. Because she looked like any other person, my dad's friends who lived within 5 miles of the area were shocked when he told them what happened. They asked if her hair covered her whole head and if she was wearing shoes. And my dad was like, yeah. Then they told him that the woman wasn't real, she was a ghost. Both my dad and I didn't get it. We were like, what? She did look like a real person, though. Well, my dad's friends weren't surprised because Navajos are used to hearing weird stories like that and meeting strange people all over the reservation. Small black square, 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 small black square. I'm from Gallup, New Mexico, but I live in Oklahoma. Anthony and Alicia, my son and daughter, had just moved here from Gallup. They rented a house in the same town where I live. So my aunt and I drove back to Gallup to get their stuff out of storage. It was the start of March, and there was a lot of wind. We pulled the horse trailer behind the pickup. It was empty on the way there, and we can only drive 45 to 55 miles per hour without the trailer starting to swing all over the road. So a trip that usually takes 11 hours took only 7. Well, you guessed it, we were on the road for about 17 hours. West of Albuquerque, New Mexico, on Interstate 40. There are now more than one Indian reservation there. Anthony was driving late at night. He had to go to the bathroom badly, so he got off the highway at the bottom of 9 Mile Hill, west of Albuquerque. He went around the gas station because it was closed and a few big trucks were parked in front of it. I told him not to stop there because I saw someone standing next to the trash can. He stopped a little farther away, and when we looked back, there was no one there. I thought I might have been tired and seeing things. I told him to hurry because something didn't feel right. He agreed. When he got back in the truck, he said it felt like someone was standing behind him while he was peeing. He didn't want to look back, so he ran fast and jumped in the truck. My son started driving west again on I-40, maybe another 10 miles. He began to slow down. There was a car in the middle of the road, quite a ways in front of us. We could see the brake lights, and the car looked like it was in the middle of the road turned sideways. When I saw what my son was doing, I asked him what was going on. "Hey, are you looking at that car?" he said. When I looked again, it was driving perfectly down the road as if it had never stopped. I told my son to get off the road to the side. I asked if he was tired, and he said that he was. So we both got out of the truck to switch places. I walked around the front of the truck, and Anthony walked around the back and stepped over the trailer's tongue. Just as I got into the driver's side, a car went by. I looked at it as it went by, and I saw a man standing on the pavement right next to the tail lights. He was on all fours, with his hands and feet on the ground. A buckskin was wrapped around him. It looked like he had just jumped off the back of that car as it went by. He was gone the next second. I thought I was seeing things. I was getting very tired because it was getting late. On the other side, my son got in, and I drove down the road. I didn't say anything about what I saw, but I did look in my rearview mirror to make sure the trailer wasn't moving. I didn't want things to get crazy. When I looked back, I saw something on the trailer flapping in the wind. It looked like the bottom of a jacket or maybe the bottom of the buckskin that was draped over the man in the road. Then I asked Anthony if he had seen the man walking in the road behind the car. He said yes and told me what he saw. I had seen the same thing. He then asked me if I had seen a man leaning against the back of the trailer. I said no, that I hadn't looked in the mirror on that side. Anthony said that when he was getting in on the passenger side, he had looked at the back of the trailer and seen a man leaning against it. He said he couldn't see his face, but he could see blue light around it. He said it looked like the blue you see when you turn on your cell phone. I then told Anthony that there was something on the back of the trailer or maybe even on the tongue. At this point, Anthony fell asleep, but I kept looking in the rearview mirror instead of at the road. At one point, I almost missed a turn because I could see the shadow of 3 fingers in the rearview mirror. On that curve, there was a 100-yard drop-off, so it was good that I was driving slowly. We got to Gallup around 3 or 4 a.m. I woke up my son to go unlock the gate at his dad's house. When I opened the door, the cab light came on and flickered like someone was moving their hand back and forth under it. Anthony saw it, too. I lifted the seat to get our stuff out of the back and noticed that the seat was down in the extended part of the cab when we left on our trip. The seat was up and can't be put down unless someone pulls a lever on both sides of the pickup. I yelled at Anthony to get back to the truck so he could see the seat. I thought I might be going crazy. We went back to the house and went to sleep. The next day, we loaded up the trailer and drove back to Oklahoma. When it got dark, I looked in my rearview mirror and could see the side of the trailer perfectly from the brake light of the truck. The night before, I couldn't see a brake-like reflection at all. So whatever was with us was on the back of the bumper, covering the tail light. Anthony thought that a skinwalker had seen us stop on the side of the road because we were tired and was trying to make us crash. He thinks that the flickering light inside the truck and the down seat in the back are signs of his recently deceased grandmother. Anthony was very close to her, and he felt that she was keeping the skinwalker away from us. When I was in high school, every summer, I would spend a few weeks at my grandmother's house on the Navajo reservation. I loved to hang out with her, eat the delicious fried bread she made, and listen to the stories she told. My grandmother would sometimes hire someone to do odd jobs around her house and land. Well, one night before the sun went down, my grandmother asked me to take him home, which was about 4 miles away from where she lived in the valley. When they asked me to drive a truck when I was only 14, I was more than happy to say that I could do it. On the res, nobody cares that you're only 14 and driving around. In fact, there's hardly anyone there to see you. Anyway, my 9-year-old brother got in the truck cab with me, and the worker and my dog rode on the tailgate. After I dropped the worker off at the shack that he and his brother called the house, we were off. As I said before, it was evening, and the sky was a deep red as the sun set behind us. We were leaving a nice dust trail on the dirt road, and the radio was playing music from the only station that could be picked up from Holbrook, which was the closest town. Arizona. There was nothing strange or odd about it. At this time, I saw something move in the bushes a little farther up the road to the right of us. I remember slowing down because I thought it was one of the many free-roaming sheep in the area. When I drove by where I thought I saw it, the sheep would dart out in front of the truck. I sped up and didn't think about anything else. But then, out of nowhere, I got this dark, dreadful feeling. I didn't know why I felt this way, but I knew there was something wrong. When I play this memory back in my mind, I can only remember a few things clearly about that night. I remember looking in my rearview mirror and seeing the dark silhouette of something very tall and skinny that seemed to be covered with some kind of hair or fur running behind the truck after us. Whatever it wasn't normal or human at all. I remember my brother crying and my dog barking furiously at whatever was chasing us. I also remember going very fast and shaking violently as the truck bounced on the washboard dirt road. I remember that as my brother cried, this thing was getting closer and closer. On your side, it's coming up. I remember being scared as hell and thinking that I didn't want to die at the time I thought would be our last. I remember going fast around a bend in the road and seeing a car coming at us from the other way. At that moment, I felt instant relief and thought that whatever had been following us was now gone, shaken up, but still alive. When we got to my grandmother's house, we had no idea what had just happened. We ran inside and didn't look back because we were afraid that whatever was chasing us had followed us home. As we told my grandmother what happened, she listened. We were surprised that she didn't seem to surprise us. She is able. Small black square, small black square, small black square, small black square. She kept going by telling us stories about black magic, which the Navajos call Belushi or Skinwalkers, that we had heard before. Needless to say, I didn't want to look out any of the windows for the rest of the night. And, without going into too much detail, I never drove on the reservation at night again until I was 21. I'll just say that these skinwalkers are bad men and ghosts who do bad things with the help of black magic. I'm telling you that they are real, even if it sounds crazy. I think that if God and all of his greatness are real, then the devil is too, and he has ways to show himself. Some people may not find this scary, which could be because I don't write enough. But what happened that night did really happen, and it scared me to death. Anyone is welcome to come to this part of Arizona. I promise you won't be let down if you have any doubts or want a big scare.